So these are the assembly instructions for my Storybook Advent Calendar. So we're going to start with the pieces that are on the left grid. I've chosen black ink to identify the pieces that are part of the left grid and pink for the pieces that are for the right. So half of my boxes will fit into the left side and half of my boxes plus one will fit into my right side. F is for frame. So all the pieces with F are the pieces that go around the main part of the box. So the writing is on the wrong side of my pieces because I wanted it hidden after the grid is assembled. And I have my V pieces, and my V pieces are also numbered, so from top to bottom, and the V is for vertical. And then I have my horizontal pieces, so H for horizontal. One is towards the top of my grid. As you go down, the numbers get larger. I have two sets of tabs that are cut out for my frame. One of them is a larger tab, the score line in the center. I'm just folding down on the score line. The other one is a smaller tab, also a score line in the center. You have a large number of these, so I'm just going to fold down on all the score lines for all of these pieces. So first I'm going to create one of the tabs to insert into these slots. We won't be using the big ones at this point. We'll be using only the small ones. I'm going to take one of them and I'm going to put glue from the score line to the edge of one half. Going to glue the other half of another one to it like so, and this will form a T. And then I'm going to put my T upside down, and on the flat part I'm just going to put glue on both sides. I'm going to insert my tab like so into the piece that says F top. The wings of my tab are going to be glued down to the surface, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for the slot that's right beside it as well. So I have my two tabs hanging down. And then I have my piece that says FL1. So that's my frame piece, and it's the left, and one means it's at the top. I'm going to create another tab the exact same way. I'm putting glue exactly the same way as I did for the previous one. I'm looking at the side with the writing on it. I'm inserting my tab right in the slot. The frame top and the frame left are going to form the left hand corner. So I need the horizontal piece that's going to form the bottom of my first box. I've already put the tab in for it, so I have my writing at the bottom so that it's hidden, and these two semicircles are towards the front of my grid, towards me. So I've got my frame left one. I'm putting glue on the top part of the tab. I'm adhering my first horizontal piece on top like so. I'm putting it down on my craft mat just to make sure that the horizontal piece is flush with the vertical piece. So next I'm going to put glue on the left side of that first tab, and I'm going to glue my V1 piece onto that tab like so. So I'm going to take my F top piece and I'm putting glue on the first tab, and I'm gluing that tab in, and I'm again using my craft mat to make sure that my pieces are flush at the back. So now I have my other V1 piece. I'm going to put glue all over it and then slip it in on the other side of that wall. It creates a nice sturdy wall between my two pieces. I'm inserting the tabs that go into my F middle one piece, making sure that those semicircles are towards me and the writing is at the bottom. Then I'm inserting it. So I'm doing that for the two others as well. I have my vertical piece number 2 that's going to go here. So I'm assembling another tab for it, and my writing is face down to the mat, and I'm just inserting my tab in the slot. I'm just going to put glue on that side tab and inserting vertical piece 2. At each step I'm going to make sure that it's flush with the back. So then I'm going to go in and I'm going to put glue on the top of the tab, gluing in that horizontal shelf. So I have horizontal piece number 2, and it has slots for tabs. So I'm just creating my tabs and gluing them in. Horizontal piece number 2 gets adhered to horizontal piece number 1. So I'm putting glue on the left side of both these tabs. So I'm taking up a V3 and a V4. So the writing is going to be towards my right. So my piece is inserted right against the top of my tab and right against the back of my piece, so it's flush at the front. So this is my frame piece middle 1. And I'm putting glue on all 3 tabs, left hand side, as I'm holding the tabs upwards. I'm gluing the tabs to the panels that I've already placed, like so. Make sure that these tabs here are lifted up just a little bit You don't want those to be glued down. I have my vertical 2, which is going to fit here. Slide that in. And I have my vertical piece 3, sliding it in there and gluing it on top of the other vertical 3 piece. Same thing for vertical 4. So now I have my larger tabs. So these are for the corners of my box. So I have them in a V formation and I'm putting glue on one half. The side that's written on is upwards and I'm just gluing my tab at a 90 degree. I'm going to do that at the bottom as well. Then I'm going to put glue on the other half of that tab and glue it to the very top. I've got it right against my craft mat to make sure it's flush at the top. And then I'm putting glue on that bottom tab, folding it over. I'm going to do that on the other 2 corners as well. And so that's the upper portion of my left-hand frame done. I have room for 6 boxes here. I'm going to move to the second half. I'm going to start by inserting all the tabs on the frame pieces, and I'm doing that for all the pieces that have the F letter on them. So with the remaining pieces, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to insert my tabs into the slots, making sure that the flat side is on the same side as the writing. So I'm gluing piece V7 to my frame middle 2. So this piece goes vertically all the way to my bottom frame piece. So with the writing on the bottom and those little tabs at the front, I'm going to put glue on the first tab, and I'm just going to glue that first tab to my V7 piece. And then I have my second V7 piece, and it has a shelf that's higher up. And I'm just making sure they're nice and flush with one another. So next I'm going to go with my horizontal 3 piece. This piece has a little semicircle at the front and it gets glued down to the first tab. So with my inked side downwards, I'm just adhering it to the tab. So then I have horizontal 5 piece. I'm just putting glue on this tab, and then with my ink side downwards, gluing that shelf right down. So I'm putting glue on the top of my piece and gluing it to the bottom of my H5 shelf. And then I have my H6 piece. I'm putting glue all over it and gluing it up against the shelf like so. As you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're lifting up that semicircle, that it's not getting glued down. So before gluing in H4, I'm going to glue in that frame piece. I'm putting glue on the top tab, gluing to the bottom of the H3 shelf. And then I'm gluing in my H4. So I have my V5 panels that are going to get glued in, sandwiching my tabs, and my V6 panels that are going to sandwich the tabs just to the right of them. So now that those 2 partitions are glued in, I'm going to do the corners just like I did for the top. So that's the top left-hand side and the bottom left-hand side. Now I'm building the grid for the right-hand side of my advent calendar. So all the pieces that I'm using have the pink writing on them. And this one's a little bit different because it is in 3 stages. The first thing that I'm going to do is glue in all my tabs everywhere I have those little slits in my pieces, remembering that the flat part of my tab goes on the side that has the writing on it. I'm starting with my piece that says frame right hand and top. So I'm putting glue on the right hand side of the first tab, and I'm gluing my vertical piece 8 so that the tab is towards my right hand side. And I'm putting glue on the left hand side of that tab and gluing V9. Both of those tabs are facing one another like so. I'm going to put glue on the top part of the tabs that I've just glued in. And then I have piece H7, got that semicircle upwards, so towards the front of my grid, gluing it to those 2 tabs. So I have the second piece H7, which I'm gluing to the bottom. So next I'm taking the piece frame right hand 1. I have the semicircle cutouts towards me. I'm putting glue on the right side of this tab and on the left side of this tab. And I'm putting these vertical pieces on either side of those tabs and gluing my piece in. And then I have those corner pieces. So I'm gluing my larger tabs to my frame piece that says L3. And then I'm putting glue on the other half of those tabs and then gluing it to the end of those 2 horizontal pieces. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the FR3 piece. So I'm gluing in my V8 piece and then gluing my V9 piece on the other side. So I assembled the top piece. Now I'm going to do the middle piece. So I'm taking my piece that says FRH2. So I'm putting glue on the right side of the tab. Then I'm taking my piece that says V10 and just gluing it right up against the top. And then I'm going to take my piece frame right hand number 3. And I'm putting glue on the first tab and just gluing the bottom of that panel that I've just glued in. So I'm just putting glue on the top of these 2 tabs. And then I'm putting my horizontal 9 with the semicircle tab towards the front and gluing that on the top one. And my H10, same thing. And then I'm going to take my frame left 4 piece and I'm putting glue on the top of both tabs. I'm just inserting it and I'm gluing those tabs to the bottom of my H9 and my H10. So I have my second H9 and H10, the ones that don't have the half circle cutout, and I'm just sliding them under and gluing them to each one of those shells. So I'm putting glue all over my vertical 10. The lettering is at the top, slipping it in right against that other vertical panel. So next I'm putting glue on the top of this tab and I'm taking my H8 piece and I'm just gluing that to the tab. Then I have my frame right 4. I'm just gluing it in to that shelf. And then I'm just gluing my H8 piece with the tab to my other H8 piece. And then I'm putting glue on the left side of both of these tabs. And I'm gluing down my V11, so my vertical 11. And then I'm gluing my second vertical 11 panel right to the other side of those tabs. And then, like I did for all the others, I'm going to put glue on those corner tabs and glue those corners into place. Next, I have my frame right hand 4, putting glue on the left hand side of both tabs. And I'm taking V12 and gluing it to the first tab, and taking V13 and gluing it to the second tab. So I'm taking the piece that's the frame right hand bottom. I'm putting the glue on the left hand side of both of those tabs and I'm slipping them onto the bottom of those panels that I've just glued in. So I'm taking my second V12, covering it with glue, and then just slipping it on that first partition. And then I'm gluing V13 to the second partition. I have my 2 frame pieces and I'm gluing them to the frame using the larger tab. So next I'm going to make the frame that's going to go around the perimeter of my grid. I have some patterned paper that I've printed out as my base. And then I have the 4 pieces for each frame. I've folded down on all the score lines, but the last score line gets folded upwards. And I've done that for both long pieces. And then I folded down on the score lines for the shorter pieces as well. And again, the last shortest score line gets folded up. Next, I'm going to take my pattern paper and put it pretty side down on the mat. I'm going to put glue from the last score line to the edge of my piece on that part that I folded upwards. I'm going to place that tab glue side down on my patterned paper. I want my cut edge to go right against my score line, my cardstock to be flush on both sides. I'm doing the same thing for the top piece as well. So next I'm going to put glue on this tab. There's a sliver or a triangle that's cut off at the end. I'm going to go straight up from the point of that triangle all the way across right to the other point. I'm just putting glue between those 2 glue lines. I want the score line to be right against the cut edge of my decorative panel. I want that point of this triangle to be just below this score line. And the same here, so it's not quite at the score line, it's just below it on both sides. So this is centered on my panel. So I'm doing the same thing for the other side as well. My pattern paper is directional, so I'm making sure that it's in the right direction. So I'm putting glue on the bottom section of the top piece of my grid. All the tabs on both sections are towards the front, and so I'm just gluing those 2 sections together, making sure that those little tabs can still be lifted. I want the edges nice and flush. And now I'm putting glue all along the top of my grid. I'm putting it right up against that score line. I want it flush with both sides of my top frame piece. And I'm pushing it down so that it's right against the bottom. And there should be about a 1/16 of an inch between my grid and the top of my frame. I'm pushing those semicircles upwards and putting glue on the rest of the bottom of my grid, and I'm gluing it to the bottom part of my frame. So next I'm going to do the same on the sides. I'm just putting glue all along those side pieces and just gluing them to my frame piece. And I'm doing that for both sides. So next I'm going to flip my piece over, and I have all of these zigzag pieces. A simple rectangle with score lines along the way, and I've just folded them down in a zigzag formation. I'm going to put glue on the end of one of them. I'm going to slide another one in, so that's going to make a continuous piece. So I'm putting glue on that last rectangle, and I'm gluing it right at the top, so it has to be flush with the edge of that side piece. So I'm putting glue on the last rectangle at the other end of my zigzag, gluing it in, and again I want the top of this piece to be right against the top of my side piece. So this gets encased inside, and it makes my edge piece a lot stronger than it would be without. So I'm going to do that at both ends. I have those same zigzag pieces for my sides. These zigzag pieces are cut out of 110-pound cardstock, or you could also use craft board. So I've joined 4 different sections to make a very long zigzag piece, and these will fit on either side of my frame piece. So I flipped my piece over, and I have all those structural pieces in where they're eventually going to end up. And I'm just putting glue from corner to corner, and then I'm gluing down those mitered corners. So this is what the bottom of my box looks like. And this is the back panel that eventually is going to hold it all together. So I'm going to do a little cheat here. I'm just measuring to see that my sides are flush with the back panel. I'm just going to slide it down here. And then I'm just going to put a little tiny piece of tape. This is just regular Scotch tape, and this is just to make this easier to assemble. So I'm pushing my zigzag pieces at the bottom and folding up my bottom piece. I'm putting glue all along my bottom tab and just those corners, and then I'm grabbing my back piece and fitting it all inside like so. Then I'm going to flip my piece around and pushing all my zigzag pieces into position. I'm putting glue all over the back panel and the rest of my frame. I'm removing my tape, it serves no purpose anymore. And then I'm just gluing that back panel. I want all my sides to be flush with the edges. I can feel the structure of my zigzag pieces. It makes it nice and solid. So that's my first piece. I'm going to do my second side exactly the same way. So next I'm going to assemble the pieces for the cover of my book. This is going to be the front cover, and the back cover goes together the exact same way. So I'm starting with a piece of craft board, and I'm going to wrap my craft board with these edge pieces. I've folded on the score lines for all 4 pieces. I'm starting with my long pieces. I'm holding it in a V formation and putting glue on one half. So I'm gluing it right along the edge, and the top and the bottom are flush. And then I'm putting glue on the other half and gluing it down over the edge. So I'm just covering the edge like so. I'm going to do that with the other side as well. Then I'm covering one of the shorter pieces with glue and just fitting it over the top like so. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom piece. And then I'm just going to glue my patterned paper on top, leaving an even border all the way around. This is becoming my cover. I'm going to do the same thing for the back piece as well. Now I'm going to attach my 2 boxes. I have this long strip of cardstock with a score line down the middle. I'm putting glue on half of it from the score line to the edge, and then I'm placing it right along the edge of my left hand side. I want my score line to be right on the edge of my box. So there's a little gap. I want the same gap on the top and on the bottom. So next I'm putting glue on the other half of that strip, making sure that my boxes are even at the top and at the bottom. And then I'm just folding that second half down and gluing it to the box that's on my right hand side. And then I have my frame pieces, and I'm just going to glue them down on top. And I've added my embellishments. Now this is cut out of Cricut adhesive foil. So next I have some embellishments for the sides of my boxes. So this is just black cardstock that's decorated with the same motif with that adhesive foil from the interior. So I'm just covering the underside with glue, and I have a fold in the center. Now I didn't want to put a score line as I want a gentle fold. I don't want a crisp fold. And I'm going to do that with all 4 of the corners on the side of my book that opens. I'm going to be gluing the plain ones on the other side of my box. So this is the spine side. And I'm going to try to center them as best I can. So this is the front cover of my book, and this will be the back cover. So I'll be gluing down these decorative corners as you see here. So I'm going to start with the back cover. So my corners are cut out of faux leather, and again I'm using that gold adhesive foil. So to cut my faux leather, I mirrored my image and put the pretty side down on the mat, and that way I was able to score my faux leather. And I'm just folding down on the score lines like so. So I'm just putting glue all along that scalloped edge and right against those score lines like so. So I'm just flipping my piece over so I'm looking at the wrong side, placing that corner so that my score lines are just against the edge of the corner, and then I'm putting glue on the triangle that's at the corner. So at this point glue would probably work, but I'm going to use red line tape right along the edge like so, and then I'm folding those corners inwards, and that will create my embellished corner. I'm going to do the exact same thing for all 4 corners, keeping in mind that the bow of the ornament always goes towards the top. So next I'm working on the closure for my book. I've cut the main part out of faux leather, and I've used that adhesive foil to embellish it. And then I have a piece of black cardstock. So I'm going to take a 12-inch piece of very thin ribbon. It's a nice thin sturdy ribbon. I'm going to insert it through the hole through both layers of my closure, and then with the black side facing upwards, I'm going to make a double knot. I'm going to pull it quite tightly, and then I'm going to take the tail of that knot and I'm going to slip it in between both layers like so. Pull my tail taut and then put some double-sided tape on top of it like so. And then I'm removing the liner from my double-sided tape and putting glue all over the rest of that piece, and then gluing those pieces together. I'm going to do that for both pieces exactly the same way. So this is the cover of my advent calendar. So the middle of my book is approximately here. So I've got red line tape about 3/4 of an inch to the end of my piece. I'm going to take the liner off my red line tape, and I'm positioning my piece so that it's centered on my panel like so. So I'm using my cover piece as a guide for the back panel, and I put more red line tape on the back of my tab, and I'm positioning it so that it's in line with the other one. So now I have my box with my opening towards the right. So this is the cover. I'm using some Beacon 3-in-1 for this because I want a little bit of extra time to make sure that my cover is positioned properly. And I'm going to cover this panel in Beacon 3-in-1. My cover piece has to be flush against the binding, so flush against the left-hand side. And I'm going to flip it over and just make sure that it's positioned properly. I'm just applying pressure, making sure that that glue takes. So now I'm going to flip my box over and do the exact same thing on the back of my book with my closure on the left-hand side, making sure that my panel is flush with the right-hand side this time. So now I have this piece of faux leather, and I've adhered the design. It's the same adhesive foil as the rest. I'm going to put more of that Beacon 3-in-1. So I'm putting it from the score line to the edge of my piece. I'm making sure that my design is pointing upwards. I'm going to position the left side of my book right on that score line, and then I'm going to fold it down. It should be flush on the top and the bottom, and that score line should just be on the edge of my book. And then I'm going to flip my piece over. I'm going to add glue just like I did for the other side, from the score line to the edge. And then I'm going to fold it upwards and get that score line right up against the edge of my book. So it should bow just a little bit at the binding. And then I have the Merry Christmas. I have that faux leather again. I have a layer of gold and a layer of red foil craft board that goes at the top, but I want to raise the letters for Christmas just a little bit. So I have 2 partial cuts of the word Christmas. I've used gold acrylic paint and painted my white craft board so that if you look from the edges, it looks like a gold color. So I'm just stacking up my partial cuts on top of one another, and then I am adhering them to the back of the word. So I want the bottom of my cutout to be flush with the word. So next I'm gluing down the Merry. So now I've given the word Christmas enough dimension to fit nicely over the word Merry, and gluing it in place. And then I'm just going to glue that down to the front of my storybook. So now we're going to work on the boxes. So I'm going to start with my little numbers for each box. I have 25 little circles to put my numbers on, and they each have 3 layers. So I have my craft board layer, I have black cardstock, and then I have white cardstock, and then I'm using more of that adhesive foil for the numbers. I'm gluing my white circle to the center of the black circle, putting foam tape on the back of my black layer, and then I'm going to adhere my black layer to the gold, and I'm also going to add the foil number in the center, like so. I'm going to do my little number tags first before I assemble all my boxes, because once I assemble my boxes, the numbers get hidden. In the meantime, I'll show you how to assemble the boxes. So this is my box piece, and I'm folding down on all the score lines. And then I have a brad, so the head of this brad is approximately 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to insert my brad in the hole that's at the front of my box. And then I'm going to flip it over on my mat, and I'm taking my Cricut tool and I'm folding down the pins to my brad, and I'm using my Cricut tool as a little bit of a spacer. I don't want my brads to lay flat. I want them to jet out a little bit. So I've cut 25 of these little rectangles just manually out of scrap paper. I've sized it at about 1.25 inches by almost 3/4 of an inch. I'm covering it with double-sided tape, and then I'm gluing it on top of my brad, like so. I'm going to take my little number round, and I'm just going to glue it on that front panel. So this is the front of my box, and then I'm putting glue on the side tab. I'm bringing the other end over, making sure that that cut edge is right against the score line of my tab. I'm going to flip my box so that I'm looking at the bottom of it. I'm going to fold down those 2 side tabs, and one of them has the number on it, so you can double check that you've got your number right. You want to fold down the back of the box first. You want to make sure that the edges of your folded piece are right along the score line of your box. And then I'm adding glue to that front panel, and I'm gluing it down on top. And then I'm going to go in with my bone folder, and I'm just going to spread that glue. And that's my first box done.